This video is basically part 2 of another video I made on how to repair the flooring in a bathroom, subflooring. And then someone said, well, what do you do if you have some damage underneath a wall? And good point. I mean, what do? You got damage underneath the wall, you just repair half of it? Well, sometimes you might, depending on what type of flooring you have in the other room. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is remove a small section of the drywall. It's always going to be better to go a little bit farther than the damage because you're going to be cutting the plates. Now, I would recommend starting with just cutting a section out, and to make sure that the wall stud doesn't lower, cut a section out, pull this piece of the plate out, and then make sure that the wall stud hasn't moved very much. Then go ahead and cut the rest of the plate out. If you're sure it's a non-bearing wall, you can go ahead and just cut the plates out to this point here. Next, you're going to need to mark the plywood to get yourself a nice square measurement, and you can do that by measuring off of the plywood. So you could just measure from the break here. Let's say it's 20 inches, and then measure from here 20 inches, and then measure from this mark. Get a straight line, and then measure to this line. And of course, you could do the same this way. Here's what you should have when you're finished. And now, after you remove the plywood, you should end up with something like this. The wall studs are just going to be hanging there. You should be able to see the joist. And if you need, I'm going to try and put a link, like I said, to the other video on floor repairs, and I'll give you an idea how you can do what you can do to the floor joist. Here we have the plywood is half on the joist, and here it isn't. You would simply just nail another joist to the side, a 2x4, or cut the plywood back another 3/4 of an inch for something like this. Again, the other video will have more information. Now, here's something: if you don't cut the drywall, you won't be able to slide the plywood in. It's going to be hard to slide the plywood in. So I suggest that you take and cut a little bit out, maybe an inch. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is that most of the time you have baseboard, and the baseboard will be able to cover the area that you cut. So if your baseboard is 1.5 inches, then you could always go 1 inch and then reinstall the baseboard without doing any repairs to the drywall. Next up on the list will be to cut the piece of plywood. Now, you could always cut it into smaller pieces if you need to. Cut it into as many pieces as you feel necessary, but the bigger, if you can get it in one solid piece, it's going to be better. You could always cut it down the middle this way, or cut it down the middle this way to make your job a little easier. Now, to slide it in, simply all you're going to need to do is put it at an angle, go from either side, and then slide it in. That shouldn't be too hard. You should have plenty of room without the plate on this side and the cut drywall on the other side. You should have plenty of room to put it in. After you have installed the plywood, you can reinstall the floor plate. And this floor plate doesn't need to be strapped. Just simply nail it back and firmly fasten it securely to the flooring, and then nail the wall studs to the plate. And you could always use some building hardware here. If you want to use some A35s to secure this, that's fine. Like I said, this doesn't need a strap or anything at the bottom. And you should be done. That should be it. Reinstall the baseboard, and you are good to go. If you have any questions, feel free to email them to me or leave them in the comment area, and I will answer them as soon as possible.